so within 6 months. We got up to about 75,000 a month in recurring revenue, or roughly 3 times the amount of monthly recurring revenue currently than we were the day that I hired you.
So hi, Bradley. Thank you so much for joining us today for this chat. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, absolutely. So before we get started, could you take a couple minutes to introduce yourself and your role in the business, and also talk a little bit about what you do as an agency?
Sure. So I'm Bradley Benner with Semantic Links and also Semantic Mastery. I run my own local SEO agency and started trying to find links, a link builder, link service that would provide backlinks that would produce a real effect for my local SEO clients that were affordable. And after I finally just kind of developed my own link building method, which is based purely on relevance, hence the name Semantic Links. There's topical relevance for improving organic results and geographic relevance for improving maps results or local SEO results. And we kind of strike a balance for both with our process at Semantic Links. And then once, I developed it for my own agency first, but once it started working well for my own agency, then that's when I created Semantic Links. And now I'm a white label link building provider for other SEO agencies and consultants.
So Bradley, before we started working together, what was going on in the business, and what was it that made you want to work with us or want to work with someone who can help you with sales and appointment generation?
For me, it's the consistency of prospecting and doing the required email outreach and all of that to generate appointments consistently. As the owner of the business, as well as, and I handle all the sales 100%. And then also, in addition to kind of managing operations, at least to a degree, it's very difficult to also consistently do prospecting. And I know I've been running my own agency for over 10 years, and I know how difficult it is to consistently prospect and keep the pipeline full of leads. I've realized over the years that I just needed to outsource that to somebody that's all they focus on is setting appointments and generating leads, and that's what you do. And so when I kind of took a leap of faith in trying it, you came in from a recommendation from one of my business partners. I guess he had talked to you at some point too. So I took you up on the offer, and it turned out to be incredibly valuable for my agency because it has helped me to generate a consistent for almost 2 years now. We've been working together. And it's been great because in addition to my own kind of outreach methods, fully half of the growth of my agency since we started working together can be attributed directly to the leads that you've generated.
Love to hear that, and really happy that we could contribute in whatever way we contributed. So when we started working together, what other channels, what other methods were you exploring to solve the same problem?
Well, mostly YouTube, and we have our own email list through our coaching company, Semantic Mastery, that would obviously be relevant for link building services, would be interested in link building services. So we've done a lot of kind of or growth through our own audience, a pre-existing audience, I should say. We also do a weekly YouTube show for local SEO. It's called Hump Day Hangouts, and so that we've been doing that for 10 years, and so that generates a lot of. We got a lot of fairly big YouTube audience, and so that generates a lot of additional leads too. But like I said, I was looking for targeted outreach, which I didn't want to handle that myself because it's time consuming, and especially with email now, it's so hard to get emails to inbox. It takes so much work. You have to really know what you're doing with email, or you just never get they don't inbox, so they don't get delivered, or people never see them because they go to promotions or some category in Gmail other than the primary inbox. And so I just didn't want to constantly fight that battle. I would rather just let a professional company like yourselves that do that, then that's all you do to focus on that for me so that I know it gets done and it gets done well. Consistently, the leads that you've generated through your outreach process, it's like I said, is half the growth of my agency has been because of you and your leads. And so I appreciate that, and I will continue to use your services.
Absolutely, Bradley. Thank you so much. So during this time, during these 2 years, what would you say have been the key improvements or the key benefits of our partnership for your company?
Time. I mean, pretty much that's the main thing for me is time. The vast majority of the leads that come through that you guys generate have been very relevant, very targeted. I've been really impressed with how targeted the leads have been. Because I know in the past when I've used some other companies, they'll try to convince you that any lead is a billable lead, and that's sometimes you got to fight with them over it. And I found that you've been incredibly reasonable and great to work with as far as like they're targeted leads, and if the contact doesn't show up or whatever, we don't pay. You try to get them on to reschedule and all that, and that's great. So I mean, the vast majority of all the leads have been relevant, and like I said, it's just mainly the time factor that has saved me. And I'm hoping to get a salesperson in place here soon so that I can get even more time back, and that'll open up more slots for you to book more appointments for me. So
Absolutely, looking forward to that. And so during these 2 years, there must have been ups and downs, right? So what aspects or what about our process do you think impacted these results the most?
so far I can tell you what has not worked very well is Google Ads for generating leads. I've spent an enormous amount of money on that trying to generate leads, and it's not been cost effective at all. Your service has been so much more cost effective than Google Ads. So that's one thing I've learned. uh, Number two, like I said, I think the biggest thing is just the consistency of knowing that I've got new leads coming into the agency all the time. That's huge, because again, if it were entirely up to me to generate the leads, it would be those cycles of feast and famine. And again, I coach local SEO professionals, and that's what is normal in our industry, is that people go through these cycles all the time. And I keep trying to pitch this to my students, is like, hire a company to do it so that you have consistent leads. You can focus on operations and developing products and services, etc. And as long as you got somebody that's constantly piping new leads into your agency, then you have that time. You should have that time to be able to focus on other things. I think a lot of people think that it's going to cost too much to hire a company such as yourself, when in all reality, the return on investment has been certainly positive for me. So
So talking about return on investment, right? How has this engagement, this partnership helped you, specifically in terms of revenue, profit, and like the overall ROI?
so for me, like, really what I focus on are monthly recurring revenue, and that's the metric that I kind of gauge success by. And like I said, when we started, I was at a particular level, and over the course of within 6 months, we actually 2.5 times or 2.5x my monthly recurring revenue once I started using your services. And like I said, I can fully attribute half of that growth to the leads that you've provided. And then since that time, it's grown another 50%. The leads are still rolling in. I'm still making sales calls. And in fact, this month it's starting to tick back up again. So like, I can't complain. This is precisely why I hired you, was to generate consistent inbound leads for my agency, which is what you're doing.
Okay, fantastic. And so if you look at it from, whatever we're doing right now, what is your outlook for the next 12 months? Like, how do you expect, this engagement to impact your business in the next 12 months?
Good question. So for me, the biggest issue for me right now is my availability for handling sales calls, because I still do that 100% my own. I know that you've expressed that that's a bit of a challenge because my calendar's so booked. So my goal over the next couple of months in the next 12 months, is to get a salesperson in place that then I can start to split some of the sales calls responsibilities with, which will free up more time for me to develop more products and services, et cetera. And then also will allow us to take more of your leads, because I know that right now the limitation is my calendar. So my goal is that if I can get a salesperson placed and trained properly, that we can double or even triple our sales calls that we schedule on a weekly basis, which should have a direct correlation on my monthly recurring revenue as well.
Right. Makes sense. So how do you think, this engagement, or how much do you think this engagement will help with your overall business and personal goals for the next 12 months? Like, do you see this contributing in any manner?
Absolutely, yeah, of course. I mean, again, if over the next 12 months, half of my growth should be attributed to you, if not more, especially when I open up my more calendar time by having a salesperson in place. So, my goal is I do have a revenue goal to hit uh, with the company, which would be about a 40% growth over where I'm currently at now over the next 12 months in monthly recurring revenue. So that would be, considerable if the leads that you generate help us to achieve that, which I fully suspect they will.
That's good. And other than, now that we've already spoken about the numbers and stuff, how has, anything else that is not related to the number of appointments or the sales or stuff related to the metrics, anything else that stood out to you about this partnership, or that you felt was, super effective, was not so helpful, anything like that?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Number one is adding a Slack channel that we can communicate directly with some of your agents to do the outreach and all of that. That's been helpful, because it certainly, I think, helps the appointment booking process if they have direct communication with me or whoever would be responsible for handling sales calls and a calendar. So I think that's been helpful. And then also when you added the cold calling, in addition to just, email and social media outreach, definitely saw an increase in lead volume from that. That has been one of the, I think, best additions that I've seen you make since we started working together, was just including those kind of sales calls, because that certainly increased volume.
Fantastic. And just the last question for this interview. So, if you were talking to someone else in the B2B space, Bradley, how likely are you to recommend that if they're looking for help with sales, customer acquisition, how likely are you to recommend Hyperkey as a partner that they can explore the conversation with?
100%, man. I've done it multiple times already. Seriously, I always tell, and that's what I mentioned earlier on this call. I teach local SEO consultants and agencies, and I'm always telling people, hey, so I'm constantly recommending to my students, who they tell me all the time that they're one of their biggest setbacks or roadblocks to achieving growth is consistently generating new clients. And I constantly tell them, like, well, what are you doing for prospecting? Are you doing consistently? If you're not, then you should be hiring a company like Hyperke that can help you to do that, where you don't even have to think about it. You just got to handle the leads as they come into your agency. So if you want to change your agency and increase your monthly revenue, this is how you do it. I've recommended you to many students. I've recommended Hyperke to many students, and a lot of recommendations. I think I've referred several different people to you that have ended up subscribing to your services, and I will continue to do so. Like I said, I think it's a great service. Can't say enough good things about you and your team, Atishay.